What flavor is it?
Martini's Wild Tonic.
Oh, yes, that sounds so much better. I don't know why I thought you were in Utah, because I was like all stoked. I was like, yeah, he's going to be in the studio. And you're like, no. I'm like,
Is this taboo?
You know what this is.
What did you ever? What color are your underwear?
They're crass and inappropriate. It's your trippy hippie Alicia jumping on the mic.
I don't know if you can
from
hear
good
the
old
theme
Utah.
song, but you'll hear it later.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel this shit.
Welcome.
To Hard Talks.
Seduction.
Seduction.
Where the talks are really hard.
I thought this was Flaccid Talks.
This shit sound deep.
Ring. This is Hard Talks.
Hard
Hard
talks.
Talks. Hard Talks. You're listening to Hard Talks with a blonde and a hippie.
Brought to you by Hard Talk Production.
Hey, you guys, I'm so excited to be recording tonight. I am flying solo. Sarah had a prior engagement, but this is Hard Talks with a Blonde and a Hippie. I'm your trippy hippie Alicia, jumping on the mic from good old Utah. And we actually have the privilege of getting to record with Mr. Alex Harrison, all the way from Santa Cruz, California. He's a breath and sound practitioner and conscious design coach of Wild Song Regenerative via Zoom. So thank you for taking the time out of your crazy schedule and joining me this evening. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Do you ever come? I know you've been to Utah, but how often do you get to travel?
I travel a lot, actually. That's been my main. Like, I started traveling when I was young, and that's where I find myself mostly is when I'm traveling. So I love Utah, and actually went on a brother's trip there a couple years ago, and just it's just an amazing place. So.
It is. It's gorgeous. There's a lot to do here. Before we get into it, you guys already know we talk all things controversial, difficult, wildly inappropriate, and taboo. Today is not going to be so inappropriate, but we are going to expand the mind a little bit. I recently had a breathwork session with Alex upon recommendation of a dear family member in whom he's helped tremendously. And that's putting it lightly. My session with Alex, even in the short hour that it was held, was sort of a personal revelation. And it kind of opened my eyes to a power within myself I had not yet discovered. Let me tell you. It might sound too easy or silly to some, in which might have a hard time expanding the mind, but it's freeing to anyone, especially if you struggle with anxiety or depression, or, we're all human and being human is really hard. And I really wanted to share part of it and introduce you all to him. So again, thank you. If you would, though, tell us a little bit about yourself and your practices. Explain to our listeners who may not know what a breath and sound practitioner and a conscious design coach is.
Yeah, thank you. It's really awesome to hear how much the breath work in our session affected you, and then also with Amanda too. It's really mind-blowing, really, to see how fast transformation happens when we actually go within. And I think that's what the breath does. It takes us inward, and it allows us to receive a whole nother level of life experience, and it allows us to also let go on the exhale. So it's really cool to see that, and yeah, thanks for that introduction. My practices, the question, like, what led me here?
Yeah, how did you happen upon this craft, if you will?
Yeah, that's a really interesting story. Actually, I received a message in a plant medicine experience, and the message was find your breath. So it's really interesting to me. I was like, what does that even mean? This is probably 5 years ago. And I come out of the experience and I'm like, how do I integrate this experience that I just had? And what does find your breath even mean?
Huh.
So that really led me on this self-exploration journey to find my breath. And I did a couple sessions with someone locally, breathwork sessions.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my first experience going so deep, like just profound awakening. And he started playing singing bowls, and my whole body was just ringing. I mean, I could feel the sound just coming through my entire body.
Just
and
vibrating every molecule.
It was crazy. Yeah, and that really just opened me up to the possibility of like, actually, we have all this within us. How do we access it? So that led me to Canada to study with Robin Clements,
Mm-hmm.
who founded Breathwave International. And I spent a couple weeks there studying. And just since, I've just been really on this self-exploration of the breath and noticing it in different ways. And that's really the practice for me, is like noticing when I'm stressed, how my breath is constricted. Noticing when I'm in a loving place and I'm flowing and laughing, how my breath is full, and just like I'm paying attention to all those differences, and just like I'm a nerd, you know. It's like I'm a breath nerd for sure. Like it's such an interesting part of life that we don't think about. Right?
Right.
It's the most important thing.
It's almost it is a subconscious thing. I think when a lot of people hear breath work, my mom's like, oh, what are you recording about tonight? And I'm like multitasking a million different things. I'm like, oh, breath play. And she's like, really? And I'm like, no, not breath. Don't be confused. Breath work. And she's like, oh, okay. But I mean, it's something that's so natural, but totally, like you brought up that great key point. When I am anxious or stressed, it feels like my breath almost gets stuck right here. Like I can't do a full or decent, healthy inhale. It doesn't feel relieving in any way, you know?
Yep. Oh yeah. If we notice it right now, like if you stop and just for the listeners to just check your breath, like check in with your breath. It's probably your belly probably feels tight and it's probably like not really flowing. But as soon as we bring our awareness there, it shifts. And that's the coolest part. It doesn't take long. And it's such a fast transformation. And that's what I love about it the most. It's freeing, right? It's like, I don't need anything externally. If I'm able to go within, it's all here for me. And it takes practice too, right? It's like, that's the thing is it does take practice.
Absolutely. So you started your own practice in California, right? But you take clients from all over the country. Tell me what your practice is called. I said it in the beginning, but you tell me.
And actually, I liked how you said it. I think you said wild song, which I liked, but it's actually wind song.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mistyped that.
Yeah, that could have been my typo too, but it's Wind Song Regenerative is the name of, and that I just kind of, since January this year, was like full in, like, okay, I'm all in with this thing, because before it was like this resistance of like, how am I going to make money doing this?
Right.
It's something I love so much, but like, how am I going to make money? And it's since going like both feet in, it's been this ride, right? It's like so much has opened. And like you said, I'm working with people all around the country because we, this thing Zoom that we get to just hop on. And like, there's like, I remember a session with a client, she was going through just this phenomenal like experience really far away, thousands of miles away. And I could feel it. So that's one thing that we're becoming aware of, is that we're all connected, interconnected. And just because we're on Zoom doesn't mean we can't connect, right?
Well, it's kind of beautiful if you think about it that way, right? You're helping a lot of people from thousands. You have any clients like outside of the country too?
I'm starting to actually. Yeah, starting to have. Actually, a client just reached out. She's from Ukraine. She's in Canada.
Wow.
She's from Ukraine, and the trauma that's happening there, that kind of found me, and it's really humbling to see kind of what's being attracted to it. Because again, I think we're all realizing that the power is within us, and we're searching for tools to access it.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned you do other forms of practice, right? You do sound healing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell the people a little bit about that if they have never heard of that.
Yeah. Sound healing, I use instruments like flutes and gongs and singing bowls and really resonant instruments, and then textured instruments like chimes and guitar, and just a wide spectrum. And I have a music partner. So when we share together live, also drums is a big part of it too. It's like this experience where it starts slow and it builds, and it follows the energy of the breath. So if we're doing a breath session, we start really slow, and eventually it opens up, and a lot is moving. You're creating this vibrational state within your body. So when the sounds accompany that, it just tends to open it even more, and you're held by the space of the sound, which I feel like for me, sound is such a tool. It carries intelligence. It's made up, we're made of sound.
Well, and also it goes back to music, all kinds of music, that is a universal language. It kind of lifts the spirit and moves the body and connects us. And I mean, I think that's really rad, but it's also a really ancient practice, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, and I think the two combined are very ancient, and I'm discovering that not by knowing it. Like it's like, sure, we might. There's a concept of like, yeah, it's ancient, but when you actually experience it, you feel it on a certain cellular level that it just takes you further.
Yeah. I mean, I think it dates back to like ancient India and China. And I mean, I feel like that art form has kind of been lost over time. You know what I mean? People hear it and they don't really understand. And hi, kitty. I had to put my kitty away because she likes to be up in the camera. She needs all the attention. But as far as breath work and music or sound therapy, how has it helped you in your own life?
Wow, such a good question. It's helped me on one level, like regulate my systems. I suffered from anxiety and trauma from loss. I lost my dad when I was 15. And I'd say for more than 10 years of after losing him, I wasn't really able to grieve that loss. Like and that's what trauma does. It's an incomplete cycle. So we carry this incomplete cycle with us, and it's always being triggered in different situations.
Yeah. So
as soon as I was able to tap in and regulate and find that safety within my body that the breath allows us, then the trauma was able to complete. And that cycle, once complete, the trauma becomes actually a gift, because here we are going through life and having all these experiences, and we can either be the victim and say, oh, poor me, or we can actually do the integration work and just go, the only way out is really through. So through that pain and grief, the other side of it, there's gratitude. And that may sound strange to some people, but for me, that's been the biggest teaching through the breathwork practice. is like, sure, it feels good to be at the highest high, but that's not possible all the time.
Right.
You know, and with the breath, you notice it's like it's learning to feel without conditions. So something I like to say is it's not about feeling good, but getting good at feeling.
Yeah.
So for me to just feel what's present, it shifts, it moves, it's always dancing, just like life.
Yeah. Life is constantly changing, and you have to kind of become comfortable with being uncomfortable. Feel it to heal it, right?
Sure. And I think life is calling for a lot of us to find that resilience in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So we can have that stable ground and know ourselves really deeply, so we can share our gifts with the world. And that's the coolest part. So
that's beautiful.
me, yeah.
That's beautiful. I mean, just in our one session, my aunt who recommended me, she did a whole month with you, right? Once a week.
Yep, we did 28 days.
28 days. And I mean, just with her helping me practice and me having more of a conscious state of mind, it hasn't just helped me with anxiety, but it's helped me overcome heartbreak. It's helped me drink less, even though I'm having a beer now. Cheers. It's my Friday. I'm going to Chicago tomorrow, but that's a whole nother story. So cheers to me. But it's something that I have seriously noticed. I've noticed a difference in my mental health, and it's kind of riveting. Just, I mean, she has overcome so much too, and that's something down the road that I would really like to participate in, just because, gosh, I mean, you are there to help guide, but I've seen her help herself more than she has been able to in years. So I think that's really freaking rad.
Yeah, it's really cool to see when people show up to it, right? It's like, I'm really clear with clients, like, I can't do this for you.
Right.
I can support you and guide you, and I'm here to really witness you and like point to where you may not be looking. And not in a direct way, but just by the reflection of just being there for you. And I think when we show up to it, because I recommend that you do the breathwork practice at least once a day for the 28 days. And that's a 15-minute practice.
Do you recommend in the morning, or like, does it matter, whatever feels best to that person?
Yeah, we kind of talk about that in our first session. When does it feel right for you? Like, I get clear, like, do you drink coffee? I mean, all the things. When do you feel best in your day? For me, it is nice right in the morning before any just after my glass of water. To me, that's the best time. Just start your day off, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna give myself the first bit of energy of the day. I'm gonna give that to myself. That's just kind of starting your day. Like, yep, I need to serve myself before I can serve anyone else.
Right. Well, and I think it kind of correlates with a guided meditation at the same time. You know what I mean? A lot of people have a really hard time sitting down, slowing the mind, just kind of focusing on that breath. But there is a true art form to meditation as well. And I think the breath work and that go hand in hand. You know what I mean? That really reminded me a lot of our session in the very end, when you were like, close your eyes, just feel it. I think you were like, imagine like your breath is like a geyser. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like when it goes up, and your exhale, it comes down. And I literally could feel a weight shift off my shoulders. And I remember I got emotional at the end, and I had goosebumps, and I was like, I don't understand this. Like, this is amazing. Why isn't everybody doing this?
Right? And that's what we want, is like to make a clear lens for it to be accepted and appreciated. It's like, this is the most important thing that we do.
Yeah.
It's the first thing we do when we enter this world, and it's going to be the last thing we do when we leave. And it's all about receiving and surrendering. And I can do that in one inhale and one exhale. So one cycle. So if I do that again and again and again, it's creating entrainment in my being. So it's a pattern that unfolds over time, and that's what the conscious life design is all about. It's about putting the patterns in place so they start to unfold and work with us and for us rather than against us. And it's for everyone because it's your breath. It's not like this crazy thing you have to go do and travel to Peru or whatever it is, those are great too. But like, this is right here in the comfort of your own home, right now.
And you can bring it everywhere with you. And it's free. That's something you said that resonated with me. Is like, think of this as a form of therapy that once you practice and you get good at it, you're self-aware, it's free. You can have that therapy anytime, anywhere. And it brings me back to one of my favorite quotes. Celebrate this chance to be alive and breathing. Because how often do we take for granted the smallest, most simple things? For
sure.
Moving forward, my aunt mentioned that you may be doing work with some youth. Is that so?
Yeah.
Yeah. In what regards? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think you mentioned mental health. This month is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm working with, I'm contracted under my business, but working with a mental health, it's an online virtual, it's like, what do I even call them? It's like company? No, it's like me and there's therapists, and I'm under them as a creative arts practitioner. Okay. I'm not a licensed therapist, but with my training and credentials, I'm a trauma-informed breath facilitator trained. And then the sound comes in as I'm trained and studying under a lineage of song and medicine carriers from a lineage in Peru. So that's where my sounds come in. That's where I'm studying the sound.
That's amazing.
So those two weave together, and I'm working with kids, adolescent and young adults with breathwork. Like I'm on the schedule as a breathwork practitioner, which is amazing. Like
that is amazing
to see this being accepted in a therapeutical setting, which it totally is.
Totally.
But I think for a long time we've been resistant to that. So it's really cool to see. I work with them in groups, and just to see them. Some of the kids have a lot of resistance, and focusing on the breath is really hard. And I think that's for the listeners. That's common to focus on your experience, because your breath, focusing on the breath is like focusing really deeply on you. It may feel uncomfortable at first. You may feel more anxiousness because it's like, oh wow, there's a lot there for me. It's intense. But really quickly I'm finding that with the right care and not pushing it too far too fast, it's all about slow and steady. It's like let's gradually open this.
Yeah.
And over time I'm seeing the kids show up in a different way, and they're regulating themselves. And I always tell them, like, teachers, wherever you are, if you start feeling anxious, tell whoever, your parents or your teachers or your friends, I need a minute. And they're going to look at you like, what do you mean you need a minute? And it's like, I just need a minute to check in with my breath. And that right there is going to be the difference between you having an anxiety attack or just feeling a little anxiousness and allowing the breath to regulate it. Because it does.
Well, and I'm sure that helps with a lot of anger too. You know what I mean? I feel like it's so easy to get wrapped up in the everyday, get consumed with the mundane bullshit, if you will, that we talked about this in my session. How often do we look inward? How often do we carve out the time to really get to know ourselves and, put in the time to figure out what that shadow work is and how we can alleviate some of that stress or trauma or anger or resentment or whatever it may be. I think it's really hard to look in the mirror and take accountability because there's always something else going on, right? We are easily distracted, and especially in this day and age, it's almost easier and a comfort to so many to stay distracted. So what would you say to anyone who's listening who might have a really hard time looking inward and taking the time to really feel themselves, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I'd say that I understand. I understand from my own experience how difficult that may be, and a lot of times when we're suffering really and afraid of our emotions, I think that I think the system is designed to distract us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look around, it's like this whole paradigm of like time is money,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, wait a minute, I'm going to challenge that. And this new thing I'm looking at is time is art.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you creating in your life? And that shift right there
That's
can
beautiful.
bring you inward and just say like, okay, where I'm an artist, no matter, like, we have this idea of art is like painting and music, and art is creating. So each one of us, every single person is a creator in their own way. So what are you creating with your time? And is there any space, just a little space for you? Are you curious at all about what's inside? Because just with a little curiosity, there's so much potential for subtle shifts. It's not about getting there fast. It's just about like bringing a little bit of awareness there, and over time that gradually grows. And I'm dropping some things I like to say, but another thing I would really like to say is wherever we place our attention, it expands.
Mm-hmm.
So like yi dao, qi dao, it's like where the mind goes, energy flows. So wherever I'm placing my awareness, it starts to expand. So notice that in your life. And our awareness is everywhere but inward.
Yeah.
And when we place it inward, it can feel scary and daunting at first. It's like cleaning out the closet, You're like, oh no, I gotta clean the closet. And then you get in there, maybe you had a coffee and you're like all stoked about it now. It's like, okay, I can clean the closet. Now I can see my clothes and what I want to get rid of and what I'm actually wearing. And that's what it's like, kind of.
Like decluttering the brain of all the things that don't actually matter. Something that I realized is, well, and I've known this for a long time, but it's actually set boundaries with myself, right? Is I easily get consumed with relationships or other people. I have my own trauma and my own shit that I'm dealing with. And for so many years, most of my life, I haven't wanted to deal with it. So I keep putting it on the back burner. And let me tell you that cliche is so right. It manifests and it festers, and it really does come out when you least expect it to and you least want it to, right? So I think that it's kind of like magical. You as a being have so much power and this energy that flows from you. Why not pour some of it back into yourself? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that what you just said too. It's like everything is energy. Energy is everything.
Mm-hmm.
So just that thought alone, like just with an intention, we're seeing how powerful just intentions are, and gathering and having a peaceful thought can change, like, crime rate and accidents and all these things. There's all these cool studies on now. So just the thought alone of getting curious, how can I place more attention on myself in a loving way?
Mm-hmm.
How can I love myself? The door starts to open. And I think that's the first step always, is like is bringing awareness to your experience enough to say, like, no, this isn't working for me. I don't want to live my life this way.
Right.
And how can I change?
Right.
And just that thought alone, life starts to respond around you. And just like the trauma, like you said, it comes out, it's triggered in certain times when you least expect it. But once you get to know the trauma, you almost know when it comes out. Usually it's in our relationships. And I think relationships are everything. Our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with our partners, friends, the earth, these are all sacred relationships and mirrors for us to look at. And if we use that as a reflection, it's always going to show us who we are, how we're showing up, and where we can make subtle adjustments. It's not about, I need to fix this now, and it's too much. Maybe you feel that, but for me, it's a process,
Right.
and it's a beautiful process, like watching a flower bloom. It's like there's a whole process to it.
Yeah, and transcendence is a slow burn, everybody. It really is. It takes time. And, I think the other powerful thing about breath is it teaches you a level of self-awareness. If you had a room full of 200 people and you ask the question, hey, how many of you, at a raise of hands, could honestly look me in the eyes right now and tell me that you love yourself deeply, irrevocably, passionately? We as individuals are only constants. And I feel like a lot of us share the same fear of feeling loneliness, but we spend the most time with ourselves. So being able to recognize the trauma and the hurt, but also, like you said, that's a superpower. If you're able to recognize those things, you can learn how to adjust and how to alleviate that. So that's something that my eyes were kind of open to with this form of therapy as well. Because I hated looking inward. I still kind of do. But I mean, I love myself more than anyone else. And I'm not ashamed to say it. So I need to do the things, and I need to put in the hard work to grant myself some happiness. It does no good to mull over or beat yourself up over the past. It's hard to let go of things, but with this in practice, it has gotten easier, lighter.
Yeah. Taking that awareness and bringing it inward, and remembering that our outer experience it's reflected, like the inner is the outer is reflecting it. It's like all the things that you're seeing in your life are just a reflection of you.
Right.
And I'm learning that. I was told that a long time ago, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't know. I can't say, I'm not one to just jump on the wagon and be like, yep, that's it. It's like, I need to try it on. I need to see, like, is that real for me?
Right.
And I'm starting to see that it is. So I could be upset and see a beautiful sunset and still be like, yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm in a loving place and I'm able to just see it as it is, the sunset's always beautiful, no matter what, because it's always unique and it's always changing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference, is like just witnessing it as it is, and it just is. And it's hard to get there. It really is. And it's not like an arrival of like, oh, I made it there, now I'm good. It's definitely a practice that we continue through life, and life teaches us in this way.
Absolutely. We have a few more questions, but I am going to probably have to call you back because I got the notification on my Zoom that I used up my free 30 minutes. So I might have to start the Zoom call over. So I'll call you right back. Okay. Sorry. All right. Sorry about that. I don't pay for this app.
I don't blame you.
Something you brought up, which I thought was a really good question, which kind of ties into what we were just talking about, but I want your opinion, was why do you think people forget to breathe or stop breathing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why do people stop breathing well? It's like, to me, it's trauma mostly, stress, all forms. It's not just like it's like the loss of someone or a car accident or any sort of trauma that's occurred in your life that can hold this energy, and it's like this stagnant energy in you. It's not able to fully receive the breath. That's a big one. And then stress, in our environment, we're seeing just so much there's so much toxins in our environment, and stressors, and
Like
it just
chaos
holds this
too.
tension. Yeah. So I think those are the biggest ones, and the constriction, the bearing down that happens when you're in that state of trauma or tension.
Mm-hmm.
And just like imagine like a clenched fist.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like tight, and it's hard to bear. And a lot of times we feel that on a level. I mean, I'm sure a lot of listeners, I do myself, when I'm stressed, I know it. I wake up from my sleep, maybe I'm clenching my jaw. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
it's
me.
all throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the signs point to it. It's just, and then that, over time, that really starts to affect your breath pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Just to answer your question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they say stress is the silent killer. And that is so true. You wake up with the tension. You have an achy neck. You feel heavy. So I think that also like goes into a lot of what we were talking about previously, as well as like maybe people aren't ready to do that shadow work yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's true. That's the thing that I'm really finding in my life is like, you can't force this on anyone.
Mm-hmm.
We all have to come to it in our own time. And when you know, it's like, I've had enough. I mean, I knew when I was like, enough's enough. Like, I can't go to the bar one more time,
Right.
without this really affecting me. Like, I could just feel like the bar wasn't doing it anymore. Like, I was like, my fun meter was at an all-time high. It was like great time, but then that starts to fade after time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you're not even getting the same quality of that experience anymore, and you really notice how it's creeping in over time. It does take time for it to. A lot of us can fake it forever. It's
Yeah.
like,
I'm glad you brought that up though, because I have a fear of feeling left out. Truly. That's what my therapist has told me. And I totally agree. Because it's gotten to a phase in life where, I had kids really young and I felt like I missed out on this party scene. But then, I got divorced and I went out and I partied hard for a couple years, and it got to a point where it was like, I'm not doing this for the fun anymore. I'm doing it out of fear of feeling left out. And it's almost like you just feel numb. I don't feel happiness doing this. I just feel freaking numb. And so that's something I had to really look inward on and be like, well, I don't want to participate in something that isn't working for me anymore. At some point you get tired. You physically get exhausted to a point where sleep can't touch it. You know what I mean? It's like you just, I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it other than you just feel heavy and empty.
and empty. Yeah, and you're tapped out, and if fear is driving, controlling the experience and driving the bus, it's like that can only you can only sustain that for so long.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us live in that fearful state for a long time, and then, like you said, it literally starts to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to create these imbalances in our bodies that really can speak to us, but are we listening?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us tend to resort to things that numb us even more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad, because we're here to feel, we're here to learn and feel, and feel all of it. It's not just about feeling love, although that's of course we want that, but like we've talked about already, the anger, the all the different emotions are so powerful, and to me it's about feeling them without the condition of needing it to be a certain way. Like when I'm angry and I allow myself to express anger, it leaves. It's like, oh, I'm angry, now I'm not. It's not this anger that's built up and it's not allowed, and it's like shaking a bottle and opening it and it just explodes.
Right. Well, and I think it's also because so often we ignore our intuition, right? We know what's good for us, but sometimes that's not what we want or what we think we want at the moment. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times in my life my intuition has been right. And I mean, feeling is the best part of being a human being, right? Even the bad parts, or even the hard parts. I mean, without our spectrum of emotion, what would life be? You know, it's all teaching us something. So, yeah.
It's such a teacher, and it makes us who we are, and our unique chemistry and all the things we've been through are just a part of us. It's like I have this tree in my yard and I see where it's been cut, and it's just a part of the tree. It's like, and we still see the beauty in it. It's like, that tree's beautiful. We don't look at it and go like, oh, the limbs were cut, I don't like that tree. It's like, we have scars, we have pain, and that's a part of the story.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful part of the story. And when it's integrated into this moment now, because that's where I think all the magic is, in this moment. And that's what the breath does. It brings us into presence. So I'm not living, if I'm here now and I'm not in the past or the future, not that those aren't okay to visit. Let's visit those places and learn from them. But the magic's going to happen and unfold in the now.
Right. And this is the only now that we're ever going to get to experience.
Yep.
That's what's such a trip about it.
Again and again and again, because it's time. You move into timelessness, and you find that time's not actually linear. It's a spiral. So all the lessons keep coming back, and they come in waves. So like, okay, the next time that lesson comes, I want to be more aware of it. And I think that's when we really start to grow pretty quickly, is when we can recognize it and respond to it rather than react. Because the child in us, the shadow comes up and we react, and we like go into this, sometimes kicking and screaming fit. And then maybe the next time, if we're doing our personal work, maybe the next time we're able to respond to it consciously. Like, oh, I see that. That's that thing. I did that before. How can I do it different this time?
Yeah. It just makes me kind of, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
That was it. Yeah.
No, it just kind of makes me laugh at myself, because that goes back to my intuition, right? Like, you hear that little voice in your head and you're like, oh, I know I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. We talked about that. My dad would tell me this all the time. He's like, there's two doors in front of you, two paths ahead of you. There's the easy one or there's the hard one. Which one are you going to choose? Choose wisely. And I'm always been that person, that kid even, who's like, well, what's behind the hard door? And he's like, that's not the fucking point. You're supposed to pick the easy route. But if we didn't take the road less traveled, if you will, I mean, it's our experiences and our traumas, or, everything in combination that makes up the fabric of our lives and interconnects all of us. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's wonderful.
It's so great. I'm with you. I like to push my edges, and like, easy or hard, I'm like, I want to know what's around both. I want to know what's in both, and I want to experience life on the whole spectrum. It's okay to feel sad. Like, sometimes I grieved the loss of a pet last year now, but the grief for me shifted because I felt it and I let it just take over me. I was like, I'm not resisting this. And it was different from when I grieved, the loss of my dad. It was very different because I had a lot of protectors. I was 15, like protection mechanisms that come in, and that's a big part of it when we're young. And even when we're old, we have protector like mechanisms that come in and protect us because maybe we're not ready for that level of grief. But I think once we get there and we're able to grieve it, grief actually doesn't feel bad because if my heart's open to it and I'm allowing it to come through and I'm not afraid of it, it almost feels good because I'm feeling.
Well, that's where that cliche comes in, right? It's better to have loved than to have lost, because at least we had that wonderful experience. Like, it's easy to hurt and obviously everyone, should grieve in their own way, especially over a death that's, deserves some time of grief. And there's no like timeline for healing either. But what I'm saying is like, you'll always have that time with that person or with that pet or, in your life. And if you look at it kind of like that, it's beautiful.
In grief, it becomes like the capital G, like capital grief, because it's not just one, it's all of it. We grieve loss, and every day there's some sort of loss. I think that's what we're most afraid of is death. The death of not only ourselves, but those around us, and we're afraid of change. And I think I've been looking at that in my life, and I tend to look to nature for the example. I study permaculture too, which is really about studying nature, and we are nature in fact, so it's like watching the cycles of nature and the seasons always changing just reminds me of the impermanent nature of all of it. It's always changing. So if I can adapt and move and shape and bend and kind of be like the river and just flow with it, then life the experience is way different.
Yeah. Do you practice a lot of your breath work or meditation in nature?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do a lot of workshops in nature. I think it's just to me, it's one of the biggest missing links in this day and age is our disconnection from the natural world. And like, I like to walk barefoot and just like, just feel the different places. I grew up on a little island off North Carolina. I'm just such a beach person. Like listening to the waves and like, seeing the trees and the forest. Yeah, it inspires me.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of funny, like little side tangent is that was my identifier as a kid. And even in high school, I never wore shoes anywhere. And most people didn't understand it. I was like, no, it's like freeing. I am connected to Mother Earth right now. Even if the grass is dead, like I could walk outside and feel the sun on my face, my skin grounded to the ground, and I feel peaceful. You know what I mean? I feel connected with myself. And it's kind of funny. My dad even calls me flower. He always has. But I totally relate to that. I totally understand as to why. Sorry if you guys can hear my little boy's upstairs and he flushed the toilet and my pipes are really loud. So we'll probably do like a background noise reducer and editing. I don't know. We'll see. But moving forward, this is just like a side thought that I had. If everybody opened up their minds to breath work, meditation, sound therapy, or all the above, do you feel like the world would know a little peace? Like, I know that's a loaded question, but I really feel like if you're at peace with yourself, you grow more empathetic and compassionate towards your fellow brother or sister,
Yeah, to all your relationships, and I think absolutely, without a doubt, and that right there is like it's a yes and, you know. I don't like to say that too much because it's been thrown around a lot. Yes and,
Yeah.
but it's so. We speak about relationship, and when you go within and you open up through the awareness of the breath and then sound, you know, accompanied, and those are two portals. You know, it's like those are frequencies that we're tuning to. It's like a guitar. I'm tuning my guitar to a certain frequency to nature, and in the relationships. So we open ourselves and we feel way more, which can be really hard. And I think in the beginning, I didn't have the correct. I was kind of on my own. I didn't have the teachers to hold that space for me, to show me like it's all okay, because a lot of fear starts to come up because you see on a different level and you feel on a different level. So very empathetic. You know, you're like, oh wow, I feel the devastation happening to the earth and to humanity in this moment right now in time that we're here to witness this. And it's hard. It's so hard, but that's where the grieving comes in, and we're grieving lost. We're grieving like
Elliot, hold on. Elliot wanted to be a part of the show, but he pulled you down. It's okay, baby. It's okay. I have 3 more questions.
But I want to know what the right and left start with.
Right starts with an R and left starts with an L. Good job. Sorry, guys. These guys know Elliot well.
Hey, Elliot.
Oh, yeah, he is amazing. And that's something that's actually a good topic. I'm kind of glad that he came down for a second because, hold on one second, sorry. I feel like insecurity and embarrassment, if you will, starts at a really freaking young age. And that's something I've learned with him. You know, he's 5 years old. He starts kindergarten in August. And some days he'll come home and be like, this girl was mean to me because she said I can't play with dolls. Or this boy was mean to me and we're not friends anymore because we couldn't share. And it was a good reminder to me that, you know, these core feelings of, you know, insecurity or even some trauma stems at such a young age. And so I've been trying to practice some breath work with my 5-year-old. And I've seen a tremendous change. Just when was our session? Like a month ago? I mean, every morning we wake up, he has his toast, his orange juice. I'll be like, what are our positive affirmations for the day? And I'll be like, I am nice, I am smart, I am silly. And then I'll be like, okay, take 3 big deep breaths, because he doesn't quite have the patience to sit there for a whole 60 seconds quite yet. But after that, you know, I've noticed a huge shift in tantrums or frustration. And I mean, I guess I have to commend you for that, because it's something that I never practiced myself. And after one session, I was like, this is something I need to actively put in play into my own life and my little human's life. So, I mean, do you work with any small kids? Like the youth that you work with, what is the general age there?
Right now, youngest is like 10 or 11, but
that is pretty young.
I would like if you came to me and said I would like to, it would be like, let's do a session together where like we're all kind of forming like a little bond, you know, of like, I recommend this, but it sounds like you're doing really great. It's like just a few breaths, and we're not going to want to, 5-year-old, we're not going to want to push them into like a 30-minute breath session.
Right. I don't want to overwhelm him.
They don't need that. They're so young and innocent. But, you know, the trauma starts, I'm going to say there's a lot of birth trauma that we carry. And then also what I've found in some of my other experiences are like, we're carrying trauma from different lifetimes, right? It's like we don't actually know where it's coming from. It's ancestral. It's coming from the collective of humanity. There's so many traumas in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And if I open myself to feel, I'm going to feel them.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like with you, you're like, you're one of those people where you received the message and you went into action. And that's so beautiful because we need that. It's like, receive the message, get the message, and then go share it. Share it with your
Well,
kids.
it's almost easier for me to hear it from someone else, right? Because I have a painful level of self-awareness. Like, I know I'm making a bad decision. I know I shouldn't be talking to this person anymore, whatever it may be. And yet I continue to do it, even though my intuition is screaming at me. It helps to have some positive reinforcement from someone else sometimes. And I think that's why I took your practice so in stride that I was like, no, this is dead on balls accurate. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like everybody needs a little taste of this, you know, some empowerment.
For sure. And if it one session, and then if you did 2, and then if you did 4, like what I recommend for people that really want to get that practice down is like, let's do 4 sessions. And I'm willing to bet like almost to the point now where I'm like, I money back guarantee. Like that's how confident I am, is like by week 2, you're going to notice massive shifts, but you are going to want some help because it's going to be a lot for you to process. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, it's like the 28-day process has such a cohesive, it's all about trust. Mm-hmm. First, we form the trust and we form the foundation for it to work in, you know, like tending the soil before I plant the tree, so that tree has what it needs when it takes root and grows. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept. Yeah. So that's what it's all about. It's like week 1, week 2, week 3, you're a different person. I mean, it's really fast. It's just really
There's
cool.
a sense of calm that comes with it. You know, you're able to process before you react. And I think that's the biggest thing I got out of it. I'm very reactive if I'm emotional. I have a hard time letting things or people go, even if they're horrible for my life. But I've really taken notice of that, and it's just, I mean, the proof is in my everyday life now. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a profound thing for sure. And it is fast. And so, I would highly recommend, you know, being consciously aware and just like you said in the very beginning, those who are listening, where's your breath out right now? How are you feeling right now? Take a moment to look inward, you know, and accept it. You're meant to be feeling that right now for some reason.
Yeah. And let it be. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're getting that ringing, like this rings true for me, the intuition, you feel that intuition of like, this could be for me, like follow that, you know, not just to say like with me, but with anyone, and notice how life starts to respond around you when that awareness comes in. It's like, it's like seeing a new car that you're like, oh, I've never seen that car. And then the next day you see it, and it's like, now it's in your awareness. Is it coincidence? Is it synchronicity? Call it what you will, but it's in your awareness, so you're paying more attention and you see it more.
Yeah, I want to buy a Toyota, whatever, and now I see them everywhere. You know, it's funny that
you
way.
See the flaws of them, and you see the beauty. You know, it's like you see it all.
Yeah. So we have about 12 minutes left here. I really quickly wanted to ask you, because I know you're part of a lot of different workshops. I know you've mentioned that throughout. Tell people a little bit about the other forms of therapy you have found helpful, like through medicine.
Yeah, I have medicine path, you know, has changed my life in so many ways. And I think before I even found breath work, it was there for me to kind of like, it was guiding me. And and it takes a lot of courage too. It's not a path that every person's going to walk down. I think those that are called to walk down it, I'd say we're unique.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
This is not easy. I mean, I typically will travel to Costa Rica to do this work. It's where I mostly do it.
And just to clarify, when we say medicine, you can tell me what kind of medicine you do on this show. There's no, unless you're uncomfortable with that.
No. Ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the medicine I work most closely with and have over time. The lineage that I work with is it's thousands of years old. These songs were taught to the people by the plants.
Yeah.
And that sort of force and stability, it feels like such a held space, because all of that wisdom and all of those years of honoring that sacrament are with you. And now you're carrying that through certain songs and your way of life. The medicine starts to work through you. And that's the difference between like where I used to be like, oh, I need more medicine. I need more medicine to feel this feeling. I want to feel this feeling. Because if you come out of your retreat and you're at an all-time high, you're like, the retreat may have been really challenging. Your experience may have been challenging, but it just works. And it starts to work through you. And so now what I really am clear on is like, you are the medicine, actually. And the medicine reminds us of that. So there's so much that goes with it. And nowadays you're seeing medicine being poured everywhere by who knows who. And it's like, all I could say is like, be careful, be really mindful of how you're moving forward in that way, because there are a lot of opportunities too, and they're not all good.
Right. And I mean, this is like you said, 1,000-year-old ritualistic, beautiful, administered workshop. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, I'm sure. What does a typical workshop look like?
Well, I'm just going to steer more into like full ceremony, like we do like 2 nights, sometimes 3. And then maybe it's a weekend retreat with 2 night ceremonies, or maybe it's a week-long retreat with 3 nights of ceremony. And there's days off in between. There's integration circles with people offering breath work or whatever's there, whatever people want to offer. And you're having 3 nights of sitting with the medicine, and you begin your experience at like 7, as the sun's kind of setting, and it goes until like 2 a.m. and it's all carried by the songs. And that's where I really started to tune to the sounds and the subtle sounds. And when the person who's pouring the medicine is really masterful, you get to witness yourself in a different way, and like the medicine's working in you, and it's kind of teaching you how energy works. That's been my greatest teaching. It's like, I'm like going through these experiences, having all these visuals. I'm like, why am I seeing all this? What is the point? And it's like, because you're studying energy. That's your path. This is what I need you to see. So you're seeing patterns of intelligence, and you're seeing how sound moves, and you're seeing energy and waves and light and colors, and you're also seeing it in darkness. You're seeing the shadow, and you're witnessing it in such a way, in such a state, and heightened state, and it's not easy.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of people's fear comes in, because some people can't handle the hard part of it. I mean, ayahuasca is more powerful than DMT. And I I have someone very close to me who's gone to a couple retreats, but she said it was the most profound, life-changing experience where there were moments where she sobbed and she felt like she melted on the floor, but then she, came back to life and was dancing and feeling the vibrancy of colors, and she could smell color, and it just, as you said, ebbs and flows exactly the way it's supposed to. So I find it really fascinating. One day I'll get to experience it.
Yeah, I think what it's all pointing to is trust.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could just say that, trust is a hard thing for us. We're afraid to trust, and once we start to trust, life changes. The quality of our experience changes, and really quickly.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm so glad you said that too, because we need to trust ourselves.
yeah,
We
for
do.
sure.
We trust ourselves to. I like that phrase. I came up with that today. Feel it to heal it.
I do like that.
Really quick. I guess I asked that question already. You said that you've traveled to Costa Rica and Peru. What has been your biggest teacher throughout all of these experiences that have helped your life blossom?
I'd say, just aside from the medicine work, really my greatest teacher is my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that our teacher, we have a couple of teachers that we work with closely with relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and they're down in Santa Barbara, and they teach a method called learning to love. And we're finding that the relationship is a sacred container to really look at ourselves, and,
Mm-hmm.
and wherever we're triggered is definitely a trauma response. And like once you become aware of that, and seeing how energy works and how it's like reflected through our relationships, it becomes such a teacher in every moment, because it's all about the relationships, not just with our partners, but with life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, my wife, and then really like the earth, I'm really connected to the earth. Like I love the stars, and I am such a stargazer and explorer, but I'm here on the planet for many reasons, but really to like feel that unconditional love that the earth provides is such a healing part of my experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. To wrap it up, hi. I was wondering if you would kind of, maybe help anyone the last 30 seconds to kind of guide them through a deep breathing kind of meditation. Yeah.
How long do I have?
Let's say 30 seconds. I mean, we'll make it short and sweet, but Elliot's got to be quiet. Okay, 30 seconds.
Okay. So I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath. And exhale. And another deep breath. And exhale. And bring your breath into your lower dantian, so into your belly. So fill your belly with your breath. And exhale. Fill your belly. Exhale. And just notice that geyser, that crystal clear geyser that's rising. So if you notice water, how water moves, that's what we can focus on. And like a wave, the breath comes in and then it falls back down again. So if you pay attention to how the breath moves, it's similar to a wave. And if you lie down and place your hand on your belly, you can really feel the movement of the breath. And as we are water beings, we can really start to feel ourselves authentically. So just using the breath as that tool. And in that moment, you may notice tension. You may notice where you're contracted. And just want to invite you to bring the breath there. It's really simple. And it also takes time. So be gentle.
Be gentle. Well, Alex, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. You're a beautiful human, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me on and holding that space, and sharing this medicine.
Absolutely. Is there anywhere on social media or anything that people could find you, or if they're interested in making an appointment to maybe pursue some sessions with you, where they might be able to find you?
Yeah. Wind, WIND, song, SONG, regenerative, REGENERATIVE. That's at Gmail. You can send me an email, or .com. You can check out. I'm in the process of moving websites, but it's still up. You can send me a message, drop in. I do have an Instagram account, but I'm not on there much. But you could follow me on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy to talk and share this practice with anyone.
Awesome. Elliot's getting antsy. He's pushing my buttons. But again, I thank you. If you want to give us a follow, we are on Instagram and Facebook at Hard Talks with BNH. You can also find us at Twitter at Hard Talks with B1. And that's it for us today. So much love, you guys. Much love to you. Have a good night.
Good night.